exchange or whatever, and then puts them back into the account. So you're using the same Ethereum, you're recycling the same Ethereum for the same ICO to make it look like you're raising more Ethereum. And I think that that's what's going on.
So, Lloyd, for me, this one is more concerning than whether Hex is a security or not.
No, so that's what my point was. I mean, so my point was to bracket that whole argument out. And so I don't quite fully understand what that looks like on chain, but I know that their allegations come down to the fact that this was marketed and sold in a shady way, and ultimately that my view is that ultimately these arguments can be made for Ethereum, like all the arguments that you want to make to attack Hex, you probably could make to attack Ethereum in the way that they raised money at the beginning, whether it was done properly. It certainly wasn't done as a registered security.
But Lloyd, how
So
is it?
I think,
Sorry to interrupt you, man.
Yeah, I think that's the part that doesn't matter. To Mario's point, I think that we've all accepted that we're going to be going down this endless rabbit hole of whether things were securities offerings or not. It's the fraud that's worth discussing.
So I think I'm not a blockchain expert to the point where I can say that was fraud. Is anyone confirming that they've
No,
looked at this and said that
the fraud, and I'm saying these are allegations. I have no idea. The fraud is that he took money that was invested and bought the world's biggest diamond in clothing and cars with it. So basically, took investors' money to buy things for himself.
This one is
well, that was Pulsechain. So I'm separating that out, right? Wasn't that the Pulse money?
Yeah, but even that one, Scott, I'll make an argument. I'll play devil's advocate here. Then I see David's hand up. He might have breaking news for us. But even that one doesn't concern me as much, surprisingly. I'm not for it. I think it's very unethical, even potentially illegal. But again, Richard is a smart guy, and we're assuming he has a lot of money. So why would he use the raised money for that? And the argument he could make, and I know some influencers do this, I won't name them. What would they say, Zach Mario? The ones that are very flamboyant when it comes to Instagram, they show off their wealth. They say this is part of our marketing. Exactly. This is a marketing expense. And through all the diamond and this and that, I'm actually showing off. It's just all part of a strategy to get more investors into Hex, to get more users or whatever into Hex, into the ecosystem. But I think the recycling one, in my opinion, just sounds a lot more concerning. Like you're inflating the amount of raise by 94 to 97%. Assuming this is what it means. Like this one for me, and by the way, Lloyd, I muted you. So you can unmute. David, go ahead.
Yeah, Mario, I want to play devil's advocate here. Again, I'm not sticking up for the guy, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If I am an address originator for an ICO and I receive funds for the ICO, from that point, I'm pretty free to do whatever I want with those funds, right?
Of course not. No, hold on. No, what do you mean? Whatever.
No, absolutely not.
Gary, hold on. Look, Gary's giving you a
under what law you're
not
allowed to do anything you want.
Why not?
You raise money for the purpose of actually investing into the business, building out the business, delivery. It's not your money. It's not your salary.
No, whoa. If that's the case, then people bought securities.
Yes, well, they did.
You're applying securities laws to it.
Yeah, but this is private sales are considered securities. We saw the XRP ruling. And I think anyone that disagrees with that security.
No.
Guys, hold on. I need to stop this right now. By the way, thank you so much, Mario, for having me. I got to set everybody straight here. In the actual documentation, it's referring to Hex. It's not referring to Pulsechain in terms of the recycling. So it's very important that we have that context. And it's also very important to have the context of what was happening back then with the distribution model that Richard Hart was using. And I think that's where I can kind of play a pretty strong part here. So Richard had something called the adoption amplifier. And this is very misunderstood and not well known amongst the community. And what he basically did was he used the adoption amplifier to divvy out tokens for a 352-day period. Okay. On top of that, now what the adoption amplifier was is you give ETH to the adoption amplifier, it's going to kick you back Hex. All right. There's actually a price kind of attached with that in a way. But the other issue here was there was also liquidity on Uniswap back then. And what Richard was trying to do, I think, I'm not in the man's head, I can't speak for him, but I think he was trying to find a way to distribute this fairly so it could not be gobbled up by a bunch of whales. So what he was doing was allowing people to come in every single day. He divvied out 1 billion tokens for 352 days, and he allowed people to come in and make purchases, okay? Now, what was happening was whales were actually going on the Uniswap side with liquidity pools, and they were arbitraging the AA against Uniswap liquidity pools. So what you're having is, the SEC is saying that Richard Hart was the person who was circulating this in and out, when actually it was Richard Hart being a market maker, matching the price of Uniswap at the end of every day, and then people taking those arbitrage events and dumping them back into the AA. So that's extremely important context. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt you guys, but I wanted you guys to know that.
To add to these points, what people like to say is that especially when they use the word misappropriation of funds, I saw that inside the SEC document. Hex, again, if we speak specifically to Hex launched complete. There was never a appropriation of funds necessary, because the capitalist in the system, the founder, had already developed that product complete. There was no future expectation of new add-ons, features, partnerships with exchanges, referral links. None of that stuff was ever marketed or told by Richard to the community before the product actually went live December 2nd, I believe, of 2019. So when the community gathered around this YouTuber talking about Bitcoin, everybody loves the guy because he's talking about their bags of Bitcoin. And when he destroyed people over products like IOTA, or even when he was very anti, Ethereum, saying that it didn't have enough, history basically to have a Lindy effect, right? That this was a new risk in a system of cryptocurrencies, and he was a cyber hornet when it came to his Bitcoin bags back then. The history led to Richard creating a product of his own capital, intellect, volunteerism from people that ran simulations, provided math, basically, Solidity code and things like that. And then he published it publicly. It's always been available. If you just go to Etherscan and you look at the contract. So anybody that chooses to say, hey, this was misappropriation of funds, they simply have not done any research whatsoever, specifically with the product of Hex.
And I'll point out one last thing here. The SEC makes the argument that this was done to create a false impression of significant trading volume. And I want to point out, if you've ever listened to Richard, he has always accepted the fact that there is not high trading volume, especially in the early days, based on the amount of people who were, back then staking or mining. So I find it very interesting that they used that argument, because Richard has never ever said or mentioned that Hex had high trading volume for those reasons to attract investors. That's never been something that I've heard.
But does it matter? I'm asking this genuinely because I haven't watched these videos, but does it actually matter what he said if the on-chain evidence is otherwise?
Yeah, it doesn't. So that's a good point, and that's a very genuine question. But my point here is that I don't think that there was. And the other point was, that's one of their primary arguments. And if that's one of their primary arguments, the blockchain will tell the truth there.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I want to go to David because I know you said you had some breaking news. I'd love to hear it.
No, the breaking news was just I was actually working. It wasn't actually crypto related.
Oh, come on, David. You're back in 5 minutes, so now you can give us the broad strokes and tell us. Breaking news, guys. David works. He's billing us right now.
David works